Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Can you hear me okay? I appreciate you being here to celebrate my mom's. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. To celebrate my mom's life. You know, she lived here in Five Star for 12 years, and during those 12 years, she made a lot of really good friends. And during the last 6 weeks that Melissa and I spent time here, you know, we made a lot of really good friends too. And the number of people here are testimony, I think, to all the lives that she touched. And while we were here, I had so many residents and staff members tell us that they were praying for us and express their concerns for my mom's well-being. And so I just really deeply appreciate all that. You know, she was 98, and she was sharp as a tack. Never was able to get a thing past her. She had a wonderful life. She was a great mom. And just the last few weeks, you know, were kind of tough weeks, but other than that, she lived a great time. And she and all the things that my dad did, we all are left with a lot of memories for all the things that they did while they were together. My dad passed away in 2012. So today is a celebration of a life really well lived. It's sad to see someone you love go, that's for sure. But I've come to think of it as a celebration. I know that there was quite a homecoming in heaven when my mother arrived there to see my dad and all those that had gone before her. So I want to tell you I appreciate everybody here that prayed for my mom and for our family, and so many of you expressed your concerns and got cards and cookies and cakes and things like that. So I really appreciate all that. But just to back up a little bit, I was really surprised 12 years ago when my mom, on her own, made the decision to leave Brownwood, where she had grown up as a child and where she and my dad had lived many years of their lives in retirement. It was her decision to come here, and she picked the place out on her own. She did her research. Those that you know her know that she was pretty savvy with her iPad and computer and all that, so she checked it all out, and she sent me over here to check it out myself, which I made one trip and thought it was a great place. So thank goodness for that decision. For those last 12 years, I had so much more time to be with her here than I would have ever had if she'd stayed in Brownwood, because some of you know Brownwood's not the easiest place to get to. So she participated in a lot of things here at Five Star. She went on trips to see the lights, to see the tulips, all the many things that they did. She participated in art classes. I think she even taught maybe 1 or 2 art classes during her time here. And she loved the church here. She loved it, and she was here, I think, every Sunday, unless she was sick, or unless we stole her away to take her to All Angels, St. Michael All Angels, where we go to church. So she loved it here, and as I said earlier, Melissa and I made a lot of really good friends here the last 6 or 7 weeks, and we have decided that whether we're allowed or not, we're going to come to happy hours at least maybe once a month and keep up with everybody and find out what's going on, because we really enjoy getting to know everybody. And I found out really how hard the staff here works to keep everybody happy, and how much they have to offer. It's just a pretty amazing place. I don't think I fully realized that until we spent so much time here lately. So finally, I want to thank Ruby and her team and Kind Hearts for helping out the last few weeks. I couldn't have done it without them, so I want you to know how much I appreciate your help. So I've got just a little short slideshow here that I want to show some pictures. I'll take this a second. huge, actually. That's you. thank you. Hope it seemed shorter when I was looking at it at home. But, those boys grew up, didn't they? I want to thank my cousins, Debbie and Fred, and their family. Debbie and Fred came all the way from Bakersfield, California, and my cousin Edna, who came from out of town also. And my family's here, so we're very happy to have them all here. And finally, I just want to say my mom was a person of great faith. She set quite an example for all of us. I don't think I can ever measure up to it, but she certainly set a great example. And with that, I'd ask Dr. Holliday if he would speak to us after we sing Amazing Grace, which was one of my mom's favorite songs.
Thank you, Don. Some of you probably recognized in the background as we were looking at the pictures of Gene, some music was playing, and the song that was playing was one of Gene's favorite songs, Amazing Grace. And we're going to sing that song together this morning. If you've got a hymnal, there were several left on the chairs ahead of time, it's number 236 in your hymnal. I know some of you probably have it memorized, so you don't need the hymnal, but I'm going to use one this morning. 236, we're going to sing all four of those verses that are recorded here this morning. I'm glad that you all could be here today to honor the passing of Gene McCoy. I was reading just the other day a story of Garrison Keillor. I don't know if you recognize that name, but he wrote the Woebegone, Lake Woebegone stories, where men are men, women are women, and everyone is slightly above average. And that's the way he started every story. And he told a story one time about when he was just 10 years old. And he had an uncle that had passed away and left a widow behind. And she was grief-stricken. And the parents knew that Aunt Gracie was really struggling with the loss of her husband. And so they decided to go and visit her. And when they showed up, Mom and Dad and Garrison, at the door, they recognized immediately that Aunt Gracie had been grieving. Her mascara had run, and you could see streaks of mascara down her cheeks. Her hair hadn't been brushed in a while, and she was probably wearing the same dress that she'd had on for several days, and it looked like she'd been sleeping in it. And Garrison recognized that things just weren't normal. And as Mom and Dad were talking with Aunt Gracie, the topic turned to Gracie missed her husband so desperately. She was so lonely. She felt so isolated and so removed from the world that she just wished she could die and go to be with her husband. And of course the parents responded. They wanted to encourage her and let her know that she still had a role to play and that she was still loved. And then Aunt Gracie said, you know, I don't believe that a single person would come to my funeral. I don't think anybody would miss me. In fact, if I were to die today, I don't think anybody would show up for my funeral. And Garrison, wanting to be encouraging and uplifting to his aunt, says, oh, Aunt Gracie, that's not true. I'd love to come to your funeral. Well, that's kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke that as Garrison Keeler would tell it. But sometimes when we talk about losing someone, you know, as a Christian, we know that Jean is in a better place. We know that she's with the Lord. We know that she has never been happier, never been more filled with excitement and joy. She's up in heaven right now, and her eyesight is perfect. Her strength is perfect. She's got energy that she hasn't had in years, and she's celebrating and rejoicing. But at the same time, it's a bittersweet joy because we know that she was a wonderful person, and we miss her. And we've lost a mom. We've lost a grandma or a great-grandma. We've lost a friend. We've lost a neighbor. And so there's a little bit of grief that's there, and that's appropriate. But at the same time, we know that she's where she would want to be. When Don asked me to share this morning, he asked if I could share some of my memories of Jean. And I remember the very first time I met Jean. It was in the summer of 2014. And Jean, the 5-star, had done a Sunday morning service. It was a little brief time when a man would come in and do a little devotion for the people, and then he'd go along his way. But the people at 5-star, after he left, they got to be talking, and they says, you know, there's a lot of people here that don't drive anymore. They don't have the mobility that they used to have, and they can't go out to their old churches anymore. We need to provide a church service for them on Sunday morning. And so Jean, and where's Joanne? There she is right there. Joanne is the last surviving member of that search committee. There were 7 people on that committee. 6 of them are now with the Lord. And Joanne, you got to stick around as long as I'm here. But they interviewed me, and they talked to me about a variety of things. And on the second Sunday of August in 2014, I began my time here as the pastor, the shepherd, the teacher of the people here at 5-star. And one of the things about Jean is she never missed a Sunday, unless it was something really big and important. She always sat right back against the wall, right back there. And she was here every week. And Jean wanted to be involved. She didn't want to be up front leading the songs. You know, she didn't want to have be the piano player or anything, but she wanted to be involved. She wanted to do her part. And so Jean made up a list, a roster of everybody that came to the service on Sunday morning. And she would sit back there, she'd be one of the first ones here, and she'd check off every single person that walked through the door. And it's like she knew everybody at 5-star. Because if somebody walked in, oh, that's so-and-so, and she'd write their name down. And every week she kept a track of everybody that was here. And then if there's somebody that missed more than a couple of Sundays in a row, she would try and find out why. Were they away? Were they sick? Were they in the hospital? And when she'd find out if somebody were sick or in the hospital, she'd give my wife Lisa or me a call and say so-and-so's, under the weather, or so-and-so's in the hospital, and Lisa and I could arrange our time to go visit them. And Jean had a great role in helping me to shepherd the group here at 5-star. And I was really indebted to her for that. She was very disappointed as her eyesight began to fail. And she couldn't recognize everybody that walked in the door. And there would be Sunday she'd pull me aside and says, I couldn't tell who that was. Who was that? And I'd have to tell her. And then it got bad enough that she couldn't recognize anybody. And she was so sad at that. Because she felt like she couldn't do anything. She couldn't help. She couldn't contribute anymore. And so she was so disappointed at her failing eyesight. I know she loved to paint. And I saw some of the pictures up there that she had painted. She was a very gifted painter. And she would often show me, oh, this is the one I just completed. And I thought that she was wonderful at that. And everybody recognized her for that quality. Something else that Jean did is she was a very caring and giving person, very generous giver here at the church. And whenever she would miss a service, we knew it had to be something serious. Sometimes she was away. Don would come and steal her away, and I'd have to get by a Sunday without her. But often as in her later years, as her health began to fail, she couldn't be here every week. And my wife was very faithful at visiting her, and I would visit her occasionally. And we wanted her to know that she was still important. I remember a conversation I had with Jean on more than one occasion. And she shared with me that she doesn't know why God hasn't taken her home yet. And she didn't understand why she was still here when she couldn't do what she wanted to do. And I shared with Jean, as I shared with others, that as children of God, we all have a role to play in God's family. And we might not fully understand what that role is, but as long as we're alive, God has a plan for us. And he can continue to use us. Maybe she can't come and take the roster to get attendance every Sunday, but she can still pray. And I know she prayed for me. And I know she prayed for others here at 5 Star. One of the things Don shared with me this last week is that everybody in the family knew that Jean was a woman of prayer. And if they ever had a need, if they ever had a problem, if they ever wanted prayer, they could call up Jean, and Jean would pray for them. And they were so grateful for that. I had no doubt today that Jean is with the Lord in heaven. Jean is right now celebrating. Maybe she's painting up in heaven, pictures that she never would have imagined here on earth. Maybe she's up there taking attendance, keeping track of who's not there yet and who's supposed to be coming and when they're going to arrive. I don't know what she's doing in heaven, but I know she's going to be part of the welcoming committee for the people that she loves. And when we pass away and go to be with the Lord in heaven, she's going to be right there to greet us and to welcome us, maybe even show us around. I have an older brother up in Michigan, and he's a bachelor. He's a hermit. He lives by himself. And I was talking to him recently, and I told him that I'd like to come up and see him. I hadn't seen him since my mom's funeral back in 2020. And he says, well, you're welcome to come and visit, but if you're going to come, you got to give me 2 or 3 days notice so I can clean the house. Now I thought immediately, how messy has my brother's house got to be for him to need 2 or 3 days to get it cleaned up? But I thought, every time I think of that verse in the Bible where Jesus is telling his followers, I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you may be also. And Jesus has been preparing places for all of his children. And he's had 2,000 years to prepare. And I imagine that the place he prepared for Jean is glorious. It's beautiful. And it's a place that she's going to be hosting many of us at some point in the future as we join her in heaven. I got a story I just came across the other day. For those of you that come here on Sunday morning, I tell stories. I can't preach without telling a story. And I misplaced it. Here it is. It's about a wealthy nobleman, and he had a large estate. He lived in a very big chateau, and he had lush, lavish gardens out in around his house. And he had such a large garden, he actually hired a gentleman to be a full-time gardener. And every day the gardener would go and he would work in the garden and make sure the flowers were beautiful and that they were always fertilized and any weeds would be picked every day. And he made sure that his flowers and his garden was the most beautiful garden in the land. Well, one day the gardener gets up and he goes out into his garden, and it was very obvious somebody had gone into the garden and snipped some of his roses. They were gone, cut off at the stem. And he became furious. How could anybody cut my roses? And he went around questioning all the other staff. Who cut my roses? Who cut my roses? And he was angry that his roses had been cut. And then there was one of the servants that says, I know what happened to your roses. The master came for a walk today in your garden. And he saw those roses, and they were beautiful, and they smelled sweet. And so he went and got his scissors, and he cut those roses and made a bouquet and took it into the house where he could continue to smell them and enjoy them. And then the gardener realized that's what his role was. That's what he was here for, is to take care of the master's flowers. They weren't his flowers. They were the master's flowers. And the master was now enjoying them. You know, as we live our lives, this building is not our building. 5-star may be where we live at the moment, but it's not ours. You know, the things that we have in this life, they're not really ours. We have them to use them as God's stewards. But the day's coming when the master's going to come and say, okay, it's time for me to collect my flowers, my people, my children. And he collected Jean this week. And Jean is with him in heaven right now, enjoying the presence of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And she's never been happier. You know, as we reflect upon the life of Jean and upon the years she had with us, I know that she loved the Lord, and she loved him deeply. She loved him enough that she would be here every Sunday morning to fellowship with God's people, to worship with God's people, to enjoy God's blessings, and to enjoy all the things that God had given her. And she's right now in heaven continuing to enjoy those blessings even more than she did when she was on the earth. Her eyesight is strong and clear.